The following presentation is a production of Ride the Wave Media.
It's the Best Birth Podcast, where we interview experts that elevate you as you prepare your heart and mind to have the best birth.
Each episode will interview professionals so you are prepared for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Our experts will build your confidence and empower you to trust your intuition throughout your pregnancy.
This audio is taken from videos on YouTube. Watch the entire episodes on YouTube at Birth Made Mindful. Welcome to the Best Birth Podcast. We are here today with Julie Francom with Julie Francom Birth Photography, and we are so excited to talk about how photography can actually help us to prepare and process our birth.
Julie is a birth photographer and videographer. She is a ride or die hype girl and loves capturing laughter and connections between people. More than that, her favorite is capturing women in empowering ways, whether at birth, boudoir, shower sessions, or even headshots. She often edits photos while listening to musical soundtracks. Hamilton and Newsies are her current faves. She's a reality TV junkie, addicted to caffeine, and doesn't do anything productive until it is after 10 a.m. Her core values are honesty, loyalty, and integrity, and she is, above all, fiercely loyal to those in her circle. Julie is an Enneagram 3, the achiever, and will not stop entering birth photography competitions until she wins an award.
Time out. I actually want.
Oh my goodness.
Start on my bio.
Update.
Sure. Yeah, I need to update. Anyways.
Sure. Congratulations.
Yeah.
She is a validation seeker all day, every day. At some point, if we talk much, the topic will surely turn to mental health, as she has done a ton of emotional and self-work over the last 3 years. All of her best advice usually comes out of a therapy session. Same.
That's true.
She attended at some point. Find out more about Julie at juliefrancom.com. And thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Tell us
So
more.
here.
Yeah. I just want to know how you got into photography.
That day I won an award in January this year. So super excited about that.
Tell us more first. Is
Okay.
that in a magazine? Was that
Yeah.
online?
That's a great question. So there's a international birth photographers group called the International Association of Professional Birth Photographers, IAPVP. And so they do a worldwide birth photography competition every year. And I've entered every year and never won, which is fine. It's hard. It is hard because it's everywhere. Germany, people from Argentina, everywhere in Europe, of course, Canada and the United States are entering these competitions. But I always, because I'm in here, I need the awards, give me all the recognition, all the praise. Like, that is just my personality. If I'm not number one, then I'm always like, which is fine, but also therapy helps manage that. But I want to, so they do different categories, and then they do 3 different awards in each category, and then they do a people's choice for each category, which is all the other photographers that are members of the International Association of Professional Birth Photographers vote for their favorite. So it's a really limited group, and it's all of the other birth photographers who are in their front lines doing the work. And I won a People's Choice Award. I won the category for favorite of all the birth photographers.
Will you paint the picture for our listeners of what that picture looks like?
Yeah, I sure can. So is it a home birth? And mom had her baby on her chest, and the category is actually birth details. And so she's actually it's from above down. And so she's actually holding on to the amniotic sac and inspecting it. And it's 3:00 in the morning. It's just a corner light coming from the living room. And and really moody. And she's just admiring her amniotic sac, because baby was born in call. And so it's really cool. So you can't really see any faces or anything. You can see the top of her forehead and her nose down, but and she's still in the water, and the baby fuzzy hair and everything like that. Really
And tell us, what does it mean to be born in call?
In call, yes, that's a great question. So in call is when the water doesn't break before the baby's born, and so the baby's born in the sac. The amniotic sac is covering the head and face still, which is really cool. It's really fast. It separates really quickly after the baby's born usually, but yeah, pretty cool.
If you're a great photographer, you can actually capture it before it happens.
And sometimes if you're a great photographer, you also need a little bit of luck, because everything happens so fast. You need a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill, and a lot of skill and a lot of luck. And then you can win an award.
Yes. What are the pros of having a birth photographer?
Yeah, I love that. I think first of all, I just want to do a little tangent. I'm full of tangents. I tangent all the time. Usually when I tell people I'm a birth photographer, I'll get like one of three reactions. First is like, oh, I already want pictures of my ass. You know, they imagine like crowning shots and blood and like documentary, like TLC type stuff. Other people are like curious. They'd be like, oh, okay, that sounds weird, but also kind of cool. And they're a little curious. Or the third one is like, oh my God, Jay, what's I had a birth photographer. I've always wanted to know. And they know exactly what it is, what it means. And I feel like you probably have a good mix of that for people listening to this episode to be like, oh, I'm not quite sure what that is, or that sounds really gross. And there definitely are people who want the crowning shots and all of that, which don't get me wrong, I love a good crowning shot. It's pretty powerful. But also it's about like the beauty and the connection that you experience as you labor, the joy on your face and your partner's face when you meet your baby for the first time, capturing, especially for video, capturing those first cries, the first words you ever say to your baby. I'm getting chills right now. I never get chills. The first words your partner say to the baby, the environment and the challenge sometimes you go through in labor as you struggle or work hard to bring that baby here. And everybody works hard, no matter if you have an epidural, if you're unmedicated, birthing at home, you have a scheduled C-section, your birth takes a completely untwisted turn. I mean, like there's just so much strength and power no matter how it unfolds, and having somebody there that really knows how to document that experience while still being mindful and respectful of all of the moving parts that are happening is really important and really powerful, and can help you prepare mentally for your birth. It can help you process a crazy birth experience, especially if it took a way that you didn't want it to go, or if you have a little bit of trauma from it. And yeah, sorry, I think I forgot what your question was.
No, but you totally, I feel like, answered it. Yes. I was just talking about the pros of having a photographer. And I feel like until you hear about it, until you see it, you don't really know what you're missing. Sarah has shown me some of her birth videos, and yeah, they made me cry. And you know, they can be tastefully done, or you know, to what
some
degree
people
you
want all of it, right? They're like,
true.
oh, give me all my, I'm gonna be naked and give me all my, and other people are like, I really want you to keep me super modest. And a good skilled birth photographer is gonna know how to do that, right? They're gonna know all the right angles to take and how to, and be mindful of all those things while still having a solid understanding of the birth process and what is expected. Although I say expected very loosely because I don't trust babies. Babies are tricky and sneaky all the time, but like, you know, there's certain things you can kind of anticipate and move with and move around. So I have a whole big variety of all the people that have all the different comfort levels, and that's okay.
It's so impressive to me that a birth photographer can take those moments of struggle, and then when they actually put them into the video, it's a moment of strength.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. All like struggle is how you get to be strong. Nothing becomes strong by doing easy things. Like you think about your muscles, your relationships, any type of learning, any type of skill, it takes pressure and tension and everything like that in order to grow and become strong. So of course, I think it's really easy. I know for me, I didn't have birth photography and video with my first, which is my biggest regret. But I had it for my last three. And how I felt in my head and how it translated outward, sometimes there's big disconnects in that. And being able to look back and see the reality, like what really happened, what I really sounded like, how annoying my husband was not, you know, those type of things. And like, oh, you were actually pretty good. So cool. Bonus points for the husbands who hang in there.
For sure.
I feel like we don't get to see those parts a lot. We hear about them after, or we see the end result, but we don't see the struggle. We don't see the moments in between. So you're able to capture that and have that as a memory.
I think that's a really good point, actually. Can I speak more to that?
Yeah, for sure. Go.
Birth takes you very internal, right? Especially if you're going unmedicated, you don't have epidural or anything like that. And you don't notice the things going on outside of you. And I'm a really big detail person. I want all the details. I want to know what the hands are doing. I want to see what the feet are doing. I want to see like what's going on, the conversations other people are having, how other people, like I like taking pictures of people sending text message updates about the birth, like things like that. And you don't get to see those things when you're the birther. Like some of my favorite parts, I'll tell you my two favorite parts from when my birth videos is, one of them is my 2-year-old at the time opened the door to my bedroom and he had a fart gun. And he pushed the fart gun so it made the fart noise. I was completely oblivious. I had no idea. I was in the middle of a contraction, I think. And I see him like opening the door and making a little fart gun go, and everybody laughed. And it was so cute. I completely was unaware of that. And then another one is my mom holding my niece, and they were playing downstairs. So I was laboring upstairs, and it was so cool to like see the little things that were going on either in my room or outside of my room that I was just completely oblivious to, and all the memories that were being made. They get to stay there, and I get to see them because I have that documented, and I think it's just so beautiful. I look at my birth videos more than I look at my wedding photos and stuff. I feel like it's more important. Can I like say an unpopular opinion? Birth photos and video are more important than wedding photos and video. I think it's a bigger day. I think it's more important and things that you're going to want to remember probably more and stronger. And I don't know. That's my unpopular opinion. Maybe
But
it's
you also need to document it because when you're in labor, that's the place you should be.
Yeah.
You should be in labor land.
And so should your partner. Your partner should be focusing on getting pictures for you and making recordings and things like that. They should be focused on you and what you need and how best to serve you, and not like trying to document with their cell phones.
But what a precious memory that you can go back and then see everything that, you missed while you were doing the important thing, laboring, bringing your baby about.
Well, you can see how strong you are. Like, how often do we get to see from the outside our strength? It's so easy. We as women, especially like in our culture right now, it's so easy for us to downplay ourselves, for us to, have that negative feedback and that negative self-talk and just be and not think that we're as big of a deal as we actually are. But then you get to go back and watch you working through these really hard moments, and then that sudden shift as you meet your baby and all those big changes. I think it's really empowering. I had a client once who, during her labor, she kept saying, "I've done hard things before." And a lot of times we just say, we tell ourselves like in a model, like, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. We probably all said that to ourselves. But she said, "I have done hard things." And I love the reframing of that, because it's basically like, hey, I have a proven track record. Like, I can do this because I've done hard things like this before.
And made it through.
And made it through. And being able to look through that and see that perspective and remember not only the joy and happiness, but also how you powered through and made it, is really kind of cool.
What are some of the other demonstrations of strength that you have seen as you've been in these birth situations?
Oh my gosh. So, I guess we never talked about how I got started into birth photography. I guess that was one question, but we kind of, I don't know. I tangented away from that, I think. But I started out as a doula about 9 years ago. And I was a doula for about 6 years before I added birth photography in. And I've done over 120 births so far between doula and birth photography. And I had 2 babies also in between that as well. And man, what are some of oh my gosh, all this strength and struggle and empowerment and things. There's so much, like there's just so much, from just really long labors and having to be able to adapt to that and being completely exhausted and people not thinking that they could go anymore to actually going more, and having, seen partners be really emotional when they're watching their partner who is birthing struggle. And sometimes they don't know how to handle that or how to approach that, or the best way to, nobody likes seeing the one they love in pain or miserable. So it's just having to change plans or make decisions, or sometimes there's a big transformation that happens in labor when a big change needs to be made and you're fighting it, right? Like if you're at home and you're transferring to the hospital and you don't want to because that's not your birth plan. And sometimes we get so rigid in our thinking for our birth plans, right? But then you have to go transfer. That takes a lot of strength and a lot of thinking when you're in a very vulnerable place where you don't feel strong and you don't feel like you're thinking very well, because labor land is hard. And being able to see people, you're kind of forced in that situation to make a big decision, sometimes amidst a lot of struggle and opposition from the outside. And it's really cool to see that thing happen and that change shift when people just do it. Like they're at their very most vulnerable and their very weakest, and they're still making decisions that take a lot of grit and a lot of strength, and they don't think they have it in them, and then they muster it up and they do have it, and they either push their baby out or make the decision to fly. I say fly like is in fast, not fly, the hospital, and I don't know. It's just, I can't think of one specific example of strength. Well, I can think of many, so I'm having a hard time choosing one. I saw a mom once at a home birth who I thought she was in transition when I got there at 10, and by 3, she saw her baby, and she was pushing and trying and working hard in the birth pool, and it was home birth, and her midwife was there, and she was roaring and fighting, and to an outside person, you would think she was just losing her mind, how she was acting. And she was like hitting her fists on tables, and me and the rest of the birth team, we were just like, I'm not quite sure like how to handle this, because sometimes as many births as you see, they will still surprise you. But she didn't want any cervical checks. She had a keyword in case she wanted to transfer to the hospital. She was very, very firm in how she wanted her birth to go. And her midwife kept asking her, like, we're not sure if you should be pushing. We've been pushing. Should we do a cervical check? She said no. The midwives respected her, all of those things. And then after hours like this, she finally said, yes, let's do a cervical check. And then the midwife checked her and she wasn't fully dilated, but she had been pushing this whole time in the pool. And we were all this like, not quite sure what to do here. And so she didn't want to go to the hospital for epidural or anything like that. And this was a VBAC too. She had had a C-section, so she wanted a completely different experience. Her first was also a home birth transfer. And so we just kept letting her labor hard, and her husband, her sweet little husband, kept saying he thought he saw the head coming out because he's just completely oblivious because like the labia separates and all sorts of things going on. That's not the head, but it is foreign when you don't see it before. And anyways, she was struggling, and at one point she almost pulled me into the birth pool with her. She started contraction and then like grabbed onto me and like kind of sunk down, like just dead weight dropped, and it was just really wild. But then she got to the hospital. We transferred to the hospital in the middle of a rainstorm. It was pouring rain. I was running to my car and trying to keep all my gear safe and everything. And we like sped down the way to the hospital because I thought we were gonna have a car birth. So I was like speeding by her. I'm like, I want to document a car birth. And we get there, and the hospital didn't receive us very well. She ended up getting an epidural, and then the baby's heart rate started doing not so well. So they took her back for a C-section. And this was at an IHC hospital, so of course nobody's allowed in the OR. But I sent my camera back with Dad, and Dad took pictures, but the cord was wrapped around baby's neck 4 times. Not neck and body, 4 times. And they had to cut the cord before they could even take baby out by C-section. So normally cord around neck and body, not a problem. Slip it over the head once baby's born, not really emergency, but every once in a while it is. And this poor mom had been pushing so hard, and that baby was not coming out. It was not going to come out no matter how long she pushed. And so she had to go through quite the process while she was in labor and working so hard, and her body was trying to descend and dilate and bring baby down, and it wasn't working. And it couldn't work. And so she had to go through that process while still going through all the physical sensations of a body that is both working with her and against her at the same time. And just listening to her afterwards process and talk about the birth experience and how validating it was for her to be the one to call all the shots and have a birth team that allowed her to do that. And even the hospital doctors were like starting to be like, well, you're kind of worried about baby. And they didn't do a C-section until she consented to it. Her outcome was still a C-section. But the process was so different for her. And to watch her heal and process through that a second time when she had such a hard time the first time because she was the one in control. And she had that documentation, both video and photos, showing her whole process, helped her to really move through that by viewing it and by also being the one to be in control of the birth the whole time, as much as control as we have, I guess, during the birth, because we know that sometimes you just have to play with the cards you're dealt, and sometimes those cards that you're dealt are not very fun. So yeah, I don't know.
I love this story of someone who was able to process their birth through your photography. What about preparing for labor? How can we use kind of like some birth videos or some birth photography to help us get into a state of mind and a physical state where we're excited and anticipatory towards the event?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I love that question. And the more I do this, the more I really see, and it sounds probably weird, like how would you use birth photography to prepare for birth? But there's a few different ways. Like, first of all, I think by hiring a birth photographer, it shifts your mindset into thinking about how you really want your birth to go and look and feel. I've had many clients, when my clients are 36 weeks, I send out a questionnaire about their birth, like who's on your birth team? What do you want your birth to look like? What sounds and what sensory issues are you thinking what's really important for me to capture for you? What things do you think you will want to remember a few years down the road and things like that? And I've had a few clients tell me that, like, wow, I really hadn't thought about some of these things until you asked me. And I'm actually glad you asked me because I didn't know that this existed, or I didn't know I could ask for that, or I hadn't thought about these different things. And I feel like it kind of just by hiring a birth photographer, but also if you have a good one that will ask you questions like that, can help you get into a mindset where you're preparing more, where you are more mindful of the things that are coming into your space. You're more mindful of your provider and what they're going to do and what their plans are for you and how your plans do or do not align with those things. So I feel like just that big mindset shift, especially at the end of pregnancy, can be really helpful and important as you walk into it. I also think that by looking at, like, it's really important for first-time moms too, but also I think for second, third, and fourth-time moms that have had documentation from their prior births, going back, especially birth videos, are really, really cool because a lot of first-time moms, I mean, every first-time mom, you can prepare all you want, but actually going through it is so different and it's going to be unexpected. And even if you're on your fifth baby, babies trick you. They surprise you. I say I don't trust babies all the time. They're little stinkers. They do what they want. And they can it's just so unpredictable. But by going and watching a variety of birth videos, I think photos are really great. I love the power that can come in a single image. But that image is like my flash. Usually I keep it on 1/200 or 1/160, which what that means is 1/160th of a second. 1/200th of a second is what's captured. So it's not even a second, it's a fraction of a second. And that is really cool to have that still image. And it's really fun to see all the different, I mean, it's just really powerful. But when you have the video with it, you can like go through and see how labor evolves. And you can see how many variations of normal they are, how some people are quiet as they bring their babies here, how some people are really loud and strong and verbal, how some people birth their babies standing up or on the toilet. I had a toilet birth on New Year's Eve. How some people deliver in bed and with an epidural or on their hands and knees. All of those different variations are of normal, and it can help you really hone in what your preferences are and what you want. I remember when I was preparing for my first VBAC at home, there was this birth video. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's on my playlist. But that's how I envisioned my birth. I'm like in the pool. I want my husband behind me. We're going to catch baby up. And I'm like, this is what I want. This is absolutely what I want. When it came down to it, I did not want my husband in the pool with me. And he was so grateful because he did not want to get in, but he was going to for me because he loves me. But also like I had watched many more to prepare and I'm like, it's okay if he's not in the pool with me. But I had that vision. I knew what I wanted because I was able to watch a whole variety of different situations. On a little side note, I think it's really beautiful when siblings are there and people have different views on whether they think siblings in the birth space is cool or not cool. I think it's amazing. I think it's really fun. Think it helps normalize birth for this younger generation. And I think it allows them to form memories around birth that are not traumatic, like we all grew up with. But when people say, hey, I want my 5-year-old or 3-year-old or whoever year old in the space with me, what do you suggest I do to help them be ready? Because I'm scared that I'm going to terrify them. I say, watch birth videos with them. And when these moms are making loud noises and roaring their babies or in visible pain sometimes, you can say, hey, look how strong she is. Look how hard she's working to bring her baby here. I'm going to be just like that. So when you see me making these noises, you can know how strong I am and how hard I'm working to bring your baby brother or sister here. And I think that's really cool. And I feel like it helps these kids know. I feel like it's going to help normalize birth and change birth for the better as we grow up. Like my daughter, side note, tangent again, my daughter's 7. She has a boyfriend. She's going into 3rd grade. She'll be 8 soon. And they go on kid dates at recess and hold hands. And it's super cute the way she talks about it. When I grow up and marry him and we have babies, he wants me to have my babies in the hospital, but I want to have them at home like you did. And I was like, okay. I was like, that's a problem, isn't it? And she's like, yeah. So I think, I don't know, maybe I'll have my babies in the hospital, but maybe I'll have them at home. And I was like, well, do you know what? I think if you want to have your babies at home, then you're the boss of your body and you're the one who's pushing your baby out. And so you get the say of what you can do. And if you want to marry this dude when you're 27 and old enough to get married, because you're not getting married before. Anyways, yeah, she's 8, or 7. And it's very hard for me to envision that right now. But you're going to have a hard conversation with him and he's going to have to get on board with you. And it's just really cute how they do that. Or like when they draw, my 2 girls, one is 6 and one is 7, and they all draw pictures of moms having babies and it's always in the tub. And they drew pictures of me in the tub. And then there's 2 of them floating in the water. Like they're a year and a half apart. So they weren't even born at the same time, but they're both like floating in the water being born. This is so cute. And that's the vision that they have. Because every year we watch their birth videos on their birthday. We go through everybody's birthday on everybody's birth videos on everybody's birthday because, they always want to see theirs. And for my oldest, who I don't have professionally done, we took some cell phone pictures and little things like that. And we go through those. And it's so cool. And they always say, hey, do you remember in your birth video? Or do you remember when Owen said, get the poop out of the birth pool water? That was so funny. And they had these really cool memories of the day that they were born. That is so special and so valuable. And they get to see the joy on our faces when we received them and the sounds and the excitement that we had when we met them. And I think that's just so irreplaceable. It's like, I'm a really nostalgic person. So I just think of like these birth stories, they're heirlooms. You get to pass these down for generations. And can you imagine, like, I know that when our grandparents were having babies, this wasn't a thing, but like, can you imagine if you could see your grandma meeting your mom? Like, that's still cool. I don't know. Anyways.
I love that. I love how you make it so individualized and how it is similar to a birth plan when you get that questionnaire. And
yeah,
for you, are you there the whole birth or does it depend on the woman? Is that one of the questions? Are you there only in active labor or the whole thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So everybody's a little bit different. But my general, like, if I were to have a textbook answer, it would be like, I like to be there from 6 centimeters on when you're in active labor until like 1 to 2 hours after the baby's born. Now, for a first-time mom, yeah, I'll go when they're about 6 centimeters. Unless labor's progressing really fast, I'll go sooner. Because usually first-time moms take a little bit longer. Although I did miss a first birth by 8 minutes just a few months ago because she went from 3 centimeters to baby in 2 hours. So this is why I don't trust babies. But yeah, if they have a history of fast birth, I want to head out as soon as, they've had an hour worth of contractions. Because nothing's worse than missing a birth. Nothing is worse than it. And so we just kind of keep in communication when labor starts and we decide together when I'm going to come. And everybody's just a little bit different sometimes. So yeah, I usually like to be there to document active labor through pushing. And then after the baby's born, we get all the newborn exam, all the documentation, the first moments, nursing if moms choose to breastfeed, dad holding baby, other siblings meeting baby if they're at home. All of those really cool first moments and stuff. Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned wanting to capture a car birth.
Yeah.
My friend had her 4th baby in her minivan.
Oh, jealous.
Right.
Dream birth of mine.
Oh, God. She had gone to the hospital 3 times and they'd turned her away. And she rushed to the hospital. She couldn't even make it to her hospital, so she had to stop at the nearest hospital. And it was during COVID. And so,
of course,
the husband pulled in and they stopped to ask him the COVID questions. And meanwhile, she had her baby. Well, he was being asked the COVID question. So COVID, but she made it through. And now she takes a picture every year in the car with him and hopes to pass that car on to him when he's older.
Oh my gosh, that's
to drive.
Awesome.
Can you imagine having your first date? Oh, I was born in this car.
I was born here in backseat.
Yep.
That's awesome.
We
want to see all of your birth videos. Just the
Yeah.
excitement that you have for all of these. I'm like, oh, I should go and look her up so I can see the magic that she's producing.
Yeah.
If you can't have a birth photographer as amazing as you are, what can you do to capture the memories?
Yeah. You know what? Birth photography or birth in general is expensive. It's expensive. And you got to pay your midwife, your provider, hospital bills. You got to hire maybe a doula, a birth photography, all those things. And it can rack up really fast. And not everybody can afford or a birth photographer. Not everybody wants another person in their space, which is totally fine. There is lots of things that could prevent people from wanting one. Maybe after all of this, they still think it's just gross and they don't want it. But I highly recommend having somebody be in charge of taking pictures. It could be your partner. We talked about why I think that your partner should be the one focusing on you earlier, but that's okay. Have your partner take pictures. Sometimes if the hospital is slow, you can give your camera to a nurse to take pictures of both you and your partner after the baby is born. I mean, you shouldn't count on that because it's not always possible, but sometimes it is. Even if you have your mother-in-law or your doula, like when I started out as a doula, kind of a short answer to why I became a birth photographer is when I started out as a doula, because I had just been fresh off of my first VBAC. And I had a photographer and a videographer, and I knew that everybody, and I still believe this, everybody deserves a picture of the first time they see their baby. Everybody does. So I would get on my cell phone at the moment of birth and like snap away and take pictures and like upload like 500 images to a Google Drive and be like, there's probably like 10 good ones in here, but here you go. Because everybody deserves that, I think. And so I would do that for all my doula clients. A few years ago, I sat down with a birth photographer friend of mine who's actually at my fourth birth. And I was like, I should be a birth photographer. And she's like, you should. So I bought a camera and I started taking it to my doulaverse. And it is kind of a really short version of a long story. But I really think that any way you can document it, you should. I feel like if you set up a GoPro above your head, clip onto the bed, the hospital bed above your head, and just push play so you can get video of your baby coming out. Set up a camera on a tripod or something and just have it take pictures every 3 seconds or however long. Find some way. I mean, we live in this really cool age where we have cameras in our pockets everywhere we go. So I feel like some people say, well, I don't know if I want it or not. And I say, you can never see pictures that you didn't. So yeah, find a way, find somebody, camera on a tripod, give your phone to your doula, have a nurse try and take it, anything. Yeah, however you can make it work, do it.
Document that birth.
You should, you should. Oh, I feel so strongly about this.
I love that strength. And I love that you shared at the beginning of the episode that you're an Enneagram 3.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, have you ever read The Child Whisperer?
No.
It gives types for your children.
Oh, yes.
Like, is your child sensitive? Is your child, the fun-loving child? But it made me think of the personality type. If you know yours, then knowing your kids is a joy as well.
Yeah, that is so cool. What other questions do you have?
Well, we want to know the resources that you would like to share today.
Yeah. Get educated. Whether you're first-time mom or fifth-time mom or 10th-time mom, I feel like there's always more we can know. And I feel like this is especially maybe toward the first-time moms. You can never know enough. There are so many podcasts and Instagram accounts and YouTube channels and Facebook groups and everything like this just dedicated to birth. However you want to birth. You want to schedule C-section? Cool. There's a group for that. There's an Instagram account. You want a VBAC? Cool. There's lots of good resources for that. You want unmedicated birth? Awesome. There are so many cool resources for that. If you want an epidural and do everything your doctor says, that's really cool. There's resources for that. If you want to birth your baby in the woods next to a deer with only you, there's a resource for that. Get online and figure it out. Because if you don't know what your options are, you have none. You don't have any if you don't know what they are. And it doesn't matter if you decide to have a completely medicated birth and that you trust your doctor and you want an epidural and you want to be induced at 39 weeks. That's okay if that's where you land. But make it a choice. Make it something that you decided on and not something that was told to you to do. because that's where birth trauma gets introduced. Birth trauma is less about the end result of the birth and more about whether birthing people felt that they were seen, safe, and heard and comforted in their birth. And so learn as much as you can. And then also if your birth takes an unexpected turn, you are like, oh yes, I read about this once. Or that person talked about it on this Instagram account. There's just so many other things. Immerse yourself in that world and have opinions, have strong ones. And it doesn't matter if your birth turns out exactly how you wanted it to in your perfect world, but it's about the knowledge you learn along the way that can help guide you when you're in a spot where you're most vulnerable and it's easy to be taken advantage of, even by people that don't know they're taking advantage of you because of your state of mind.
Thank you so much, Julie, for speaking to that. I love that. It's so true. The more we can learn, the more we'll be informed. So we have a Mom Squad secret that we share each week.
Yay.
From someone in our community, and this one is from Katie. She says, after birth, I was more sore than I expected. It took about 3 to 4 weeks to feel mostly normal again. Again, just giving our body time and learning, she was operating from the knowledge she had at that time. And so the more we gain knowledge, the more we can expect and anticipate and plan around.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Julie, thank you for coming on our podcast today. We are so excited to go check out your award-winning photo. We will link that in the show notes.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. We hope you've been elevated and inspired by this week's expert.
Subscribe today so you never miss an episode. And please share our podcast or post on your social media so that other moms and dads-to-be can also have the best birth.
Please note that the information provided is based on the expert's insights and personal experience. It is not intended as medical guidance. Please seek the advice of your medical provider as it applies to your specific condition.